My hair up there, I realised that a lot of people have been seeing that because my video froze. Sarah couldn't log on, and now we're starting again. So today we're going to be talking about the 6-week appointment. As I just fix up the hair, the 6-week appointment. What is it? Is it important? Is it the be all and end all? What's the magic 6-week mark? I find it interesting when I hear people talk about the 6-week mark. I remember hearing a new dad I had a work meeting with, and he was like, oh, you know, we're almost at 6 weeks and then everything settles down and it's better at 6 week. And I thought, oh God, it's such a myth that we're perpetuating, that you hit 6 weeks and then everything's baby. You can do whatever you want. You can have sex all the time. You can go to the gym every day. And maybe that isn't. Oh, hi.
Hi.
How are you, Sam?
I'm good. I'm sorry I hadn't updated all my app like you think. Anyway,
I just
lesson
think they
learned.
automatically update, don't they? Look at us, both of us with the startup app, and we're like, oh, who knows?
Anyway, lesson learned for me. I'll update it before any more live. So sorry. And I think we had issues at both ends.
Yeah, and then mine froze, and people just saw this little bit of regrowth here. But anyway, Sarah.
I've still got my massage bed lines in my forehead. I couldn't get rid of them.
So proud. How was the massage? Was that a bit of self-care?
It was, yes. Once a month I book in for one of them, and it was lovely.
I'm so pleased.
Really nice.
That is really good. We always have so much to chat about. I've actually already sent you texts this morning asking questions. But I just wanted to talk now about the 6-week appointment. You and I mentioned that a little while ago, and I was just rambling on while you were getting on about people talk about this magical 6-week mark. And I was saying that I'd heard a new dad say, oh, speaking of dads, there's my children's dad who's just jumped on. I heard a new dad say, oh, once we hit the 6 weeks, everything will be fine. And I think there's so much focus on this 6 weeks, and that just creates even more, you know, we hit 6 weeks and your baby's not sleeping and breastfeeding's still really hard. Why isn't it magically fixed at 6 weeks? So I think it's important not to put too much focus on 6 weeks, but 6 weeks is the traditional check-in appointment with a GP or an obstetrician or your midwife or doula. So I wanted to take this opportunity to talk to you about the 6 weeks. So tell me about the 6 weeks appointment.
So what I'd say first out is that in our little town, we actually do the same thing at 5 to 10 days. Because we think 6 weeks is a really long time if you're struggling. Yes. It's a really, really long time. So we routinely do a 5 to 10 day check, which I think should be standard really, because that's a very easy spot to check in with people, see how they're going, put out any little spot fires with breastfeeding, pick up any early flags for mental health. So that's what we do in our town. We do and do exactly the same thing essentially at 5 to 10 days and then again at 6 weeks. But historically, yes, 6 weeks has been that time when one checks in with the person who is involved in the care of their pregnancy and possibly involved in their birth. And GPs obviously have a very big role in that because they're, you know, providing care before, during and after having a baby. So when people come to see me, and we think it's crucial, it's, you know, minimum being the 6-week check. I think it's a really, really important time to come in, even for mums with their 2nd, 3rd, 4th babies. I always have a little giggle sometimes if someone walks in that I haven't met before. I can nearly guess which number baby it was, depending on where they put it in the room. So the first timers come in holding the baby, usually staring lovingly. The second timers are usually in the capsule on the floor, and the third timers on the capsule on the bed. They just walk in, plonk it on the bed, and then sit down.
I love it. I love it. And I see Kate's just written there how lucky your mums are, Sarah. And that is really true, because for many people, they hear about this 6-week appointment. They don't know that you can ask for an appointment before 6 weeks. And there's so much focus on this 6 weeks. I wanted to talk to you about the 6 weeks isn't the be all and end all. So even when you have that, if you don't have an appointment before, even when you had that 6 weeks appointment, it doesn't mean that's the last appointment you have about your postnatal care.
No, I think that's a really, really good point, is that that's the bare minimum. That's the absolute bare minimum. And if you're struggling, we want to see you before 6 weeks, and then we might want to see you at 8 weeks and maybe at 10 weeks, and depending on what the issues that you're having with you or your baby. So at our practice, we usually book those in for 45 minutes combined. So across the baby and mum, that I think they need to take at least 45 minutes. Doing them quicker than that, I don't think people are being thorough, and unless you have the easiest baby in the world and the most straightforward birth in the world, and you have no issues at all, then maybe you'll get through it in a bit over 30 minutes. But I really feel like it needs to be 45 minutes, and often up to 60 minutes to do it properly. There's a set of things we should go through talking about each person when they walk in. So when I talk to people, I was like, right, well, how is this pregnancy conceived? Because that's relevant in terms of future pregnancy planning, expectations around the birth as well. So that can change things drastically in the situation in which people conceive that pregnancy. And then having a chat to them about the birth. Now, I'm very lucky because a lot of the time I get to be involved in the birth of my mum, so I might already know the story, or maybe I was there, which is really lovely.
So good.
It's so lovely.
It's like for me to retrain my entire life so I can come with you every day to work.
So that's really nice. So you need to get the story of birth, because, you know, if you've looked over someone antenatally and you knew what their hopes were for their birth, and that birth then was far removed from that, or it was a traumatic birth for any number of reasons, it's really important for us to find that out so we can take good care of mum and baby. That's very clinically relevant. So in terms of what we get at decision making, obviously checking about baby's birth weight, and then making sure that baby's had all the appropriate checks in hospital. Did they have their newborn head to toe checked by a doctor before they left the building? Did they have their heel prick test for some, you know, unusual metabolic problems? Did they have their hearing test? It's a lot of logistics at that appointment too, to make sure all of those things have been done as well. Did they have their initial immunisations in hospital, that sort of thing. Then I would normally talk to mums about feeding and go, right, which way are we feeding, and do a deep dive on that. I really try and, you know, and certainly encourage my mums to breastfeed during the consult, because I think it's pretty valuable for me to have a quick quiz of how everything's going in terms of latch. And we also have a chat about whether they think they've got enough milk. Are they feeling relaxed? Are they any issues with the baby's latch? Is it painful? These are all those things that if we sort out then at that 6 week check, we can make sure that they're far more likely to go on and have, you know, a longer breastfeeding journey than if you don't have a thorough 6 week check. The other things that we talk to people about, which is really important as well, is about relationship safety at home. So asking whether women feel safe at home, that time during pregnancy and postpartum is a risky time, and often domestic violence can escalate. So we always check that. That can be challenging sometimes if people's partners come with them. But please, for the women listening, if you need to reach out, there's lots of ways that you can do that with some discreet notes, or you can always come back and say you forgot something and have a quick word to us. That's another easy way to flag something with us. We check about drugs and alcohol to make sure it hasn't become a problem or was a problem previously, prior to pregnancy or during. And obviously do a really good check-in on mental health. There's a tool that we use that most women should be quizzed on during the pregnancy, and I do it at the 5 to 10 day and 6 week check, called the Edinburgh postnatal depression score. It's a 10 question scale, and that just gives us a bit of a screening tool to say, right, well, is this sort of within the realm of normal of within, you know, with a new baby in terms of how you're managing, or are things actually a little bit worse than maybe someone realised, and they're really struggling either with some anxiety or with depression, or rarely with some psychotic symptoms, which can happen to some mums. So their thoughts become quite disordered and they can be very, very unwell. So this is routine. Every single person needs to be asked all these things and check these things. We'll talk to people about their bladder and bowel function. So that's really important to see what's been happening since they had their baby. If they had any troubles doing a wee or a poo, have they had any troubles holding either of those in? That will prompt, you know, discussions about pelvic floor exercises and or referrals to a women's health physio or someone who's got an interest in that. For your new mums watching, is the website called Pelvic Floor First is excellent, and that's put together by the Australian Continence Foundation. So they've got some really excellent resources there which can talk women through safe ways to do pelvic floor exercises, and also about pelvic floor friendly exercise. So that means other ways that you can get fit without busting your pelvic floor.
Yeah.
The other question we always ask is whether people have gone back to having sex yet. And there's always this sort of myth around the 6-week, you can't have sex until you've got the okay from your GP at the 6-week check. That's not true. If women don't want to be having sex and they want to use it as a reason, that's perfectly fine, and I'm happy to be thrown under the bus for that one. And there's some couples who will resume having sex, not that long after having a vaginal or cesarean birth, and there's no right or wrong answer on that. That if, as long as, two consenting adults and both want to do it, then that's fine. So I always ask, even at the 5 to 10 day check, because every now and then you get a little surprise. And obviously then we'll prompt a discussion about contraception, which most people think when they've got a 6-week-old baby, that's the last thing on their mind is about if they're going to have any more. And most people at that stage are going, absolutely not, like I'm done. And we've all heard that 1,000 times. But we want to make sure women don't have an unplanned pregnancy if we can avoid it. So, we talk about Irish twins, so 2 babies born within 12 months, and that does happen. I think people put their head in the sand a little bit and think that it won't happen to them. So I talk to women about, how would you feel if you were pregnant and you had a 4-month-old? And that usually guides our discussion about how swiftly we need to get on some really reliable contraception. Or if someone's planning to really, have back-to-back pregnancies and really try and line them up like I did.
And here too. Good on us.
What else do we talk about? And then talk about, Pap Smears, so cervical screening is a new word we use for Pap Smears. So are they up to date with that? Did you have your immunisations in pregnancy that you needed to? Are your whooping cough needles up to date? Did your partner have one? Does anyone else in your family need one? So there's a lot of preventative health care as well that we're discussing then. And all the whole time is watching mum, watching baby, looking at that interaction. And then baby gets a good once over as well.
And so what do you look for baby?
So for baby, we go through, so in different states, you're going to have a different little book that they come out of hospital with, which will have their details around their birth weight, their discharge weight, the details of their baby check in hospital by one of the doctors, and also will have the records of whether or not they had their heel prick test done, their hearing test, and their immunisations. Oh, someone's had a very quick gap there.
I know
some women are very, very lucky.
Yeah.
There's a very small number of women, who will not ovulate while they're doing any breastfeeding, but unless people are willing to run the gauntlet, I don't ask anyone to rely on it. But there's an incredibly small number of women who can rely on.
That I think as a midwife you'd know, but things slip through the cracks, probably not the best way to say it, but things do slip through.
Yeah, definitely. I had a great story from a midwife that we were joking about the Irish twin things, and she's like, that was me. She had premature twins in hospital and was pregnant again when they were like 10 weeks old. So she had 3 under 1. I know. And she's like, you think as a midwife, you think because of my job I would know. So she's like, yep, that was me, all done. 12 months, I had 3 kids.
Wow, that's
anyway, it can happen. It can happen. And so then when we're talking about baby, we're obviously asking mum about, have you got any worries? Is there anything that you're not sure about? We don't expect you to be experts, especially for your first baby, and really reiterate about, there's no silly questions, just to hit us up because then we can help. We're talking about the way the baby's being fed, how often they're being fed, are we wetting enough nappies, what do the poos look like? And a lot of that, we'll gain a bit of that information when we're talking to mum. As baby's starting to meet the milestones, so by the 6-week mark, we'd be expecting that they're starting to throw a few smiles out. I remember my GP said to me, they smile at the 6-week mark because you really need them to, which I thought was
I've heard that too.
Very accurate observation.
Yes.
So are they following faces? Will they follow your face, when you're moving in front of them? Are they loving looking at the light? Are they starting to lift their head up a little bit when you're putting them on their tummy, or you're getting all your ovaries are going in overdrive, aren't they?
Oh, I love a 6-week-old.
They're very cute. And that's the bit I love about my job, that people walk in, I'm like, right, give me that squishy baby and I'll cuddle it while I do some stuff, and then you get to give them back.
It's funny, I just had coffee with a lady who is pregnant, and I was like, so it's really important to have someone in your life who can just hand the baby over to if you need to, like, sit down and have a coffee or have a shower, or just feel comfortable handing the baby over to someone just to hold it so you can have a break. Just planting the seeds early for her that I'm more than happy to be that person.
To be the baby holder. Mm. It's good. You need someone like that. That's good.
Yeah, you
so
do.
generous.
You need someone. Find a baby holder. I'm going to put that as a topic for a post. Find a baby holder.
Find a baby holder. And then we do the same check again. So we physically examine the baby, head to toe, repeating all the same things that were done in hospital, weighing baby, checking its length, checking its head circumference. And if we're immunising the baby at that visit, then we do those immunisations then as well. So it's a really very comprehensive check. Now, I still think it's important to involve GPs in this process because we do come at it from a slightly different angle. So the obstetricians are great, and for the same reason that I love seeing the ladies I was involved in their births, they do too, and it's nice follow-up for them. There might be more details about the birth or the pregnancy that they definitely need to debrief with you. And there'll be variable experience in terms of breastfeeding advice and more infant stuff from them. Some women are very preferred, if they're birthed privately, will be seeing their obstetrician and then a paediatrician as well. But I do think keeping, for those circumstances, keeping a midwife or a child health nurse involved is a good idea as well, because you do get a very well-rounded approach.
So care team, it's not just... So do you think then it's worth... So if I had a private birth with an obstetrician, that then I also went around the 6-week mark and saw my GP as well, so that there was that continuous care for then that baby's care for the rest of that baby's life, or as long as you're with the family GP?
So I certainly ask all of my ladies to come and see me, and I think initially they might think they're doubling up, but after the visit they realise that they've covered off on quite a lot of different things. And you know, there's GPs like myself who are actively involved, you know, in intrapartum care, so in delivering babies. So our level of experience, enthusiasm and interest is more. So people need to also, you know, be sensible about picking the right team for people to support them around them. That they're feeling like that they've got a great relationship with their obstetrician, then I would definitely go to that 6-week appointment check. But I think linking back in with your GP, even if it was just for a shorter version of that, if you've been thorough with your obstetrician to be like, hey, I had a baby, here it is, what happened? Because if that lady rolls up to us then at the 4-month mark with severe postnatal depression, we're chasing our tail a little bit to, you know, figure out the backstory, what happened, you know, because we've already touched base with someone and we know what's happened, we know what's going on, but we need to anticipate some issues. And be more proactive about, you know, sometimes if I've got someone I'm worried about, I'll just check in with them weekly, even if it's just a quick phone consult or a video consult, and say, like, hey, travelling this week, anything else we need to work on? And that can be sometimes to get people through that first 6 weeks.
It was interesting when we chose our obstetrician, part of what they had was a weekly check-in with midwife for the first 10 weeks. And we found that invaluable because it was just that check-in. And wouldn't it be awesome if every mother and parent, male and female, got to do that? Can I ask you, can you actually say to your GP, I want a longer appointment, or can you say to your GP, I want to see you more often, or can you refer me to somewhere like, can you see a maternal child health nurse every week? For people who haven't got a midwife provided by their OBS or haven't got that same sort of service, where can they get help along that entire, like if they need every week, or that they can't just rely? So some people haven't got GPs who they can rely on to say, I need to support you in better ways. They need to be proactive about finding that. So how would you recommend a new mum went about that?
It's going to depend on the town, Sal. So in our town, we've got a public service, which is great, and we've got public child maternal health nurses who do check in with nearly all the women in town who've had a baby in varying frequencies depending on need. So there's people who need weekly visits, then they can home visit some people, and they can pop into our clinic. Now, each service locally there's going to be nuances about the way the service is run. The tricky bit is if people are feeling a little bit vulnerable, that to put their hand up and say, I think I need to see you more often, that feels like a big call. They might not sure what to do or how to approach that. So 100%. I think it's quite reasonable. Most GPs now are starting to move to some bookings online as well. So that's another way that you can go, right, well, I'm actually just going to book an appointment every week or 10 days if I'm struggling a bit with my mental health, if my anxiety, maybe my pre-existing anxiety's got away from me a little bit. Maybe I've never been anxious and now I feel quite anxious that I have this new baby. Postnatal depression is really common. So we certainly are very happy if people are proactive about booking those appointments. Again, each practice, each service is going to be a little bit different depending on appointment availability and what the usual protocols are. So in public services, you should be able to access a maternal child health nurse, and it will just depend on their appointment availability. Yeah, it's challenging. So the other things are as well is that, since COVID, the silver lining is that there's lots of telehealth services available. So there's other clinics, so places like the Hospice Clinic, which is run by Dr. Pam Douglas, who, wrote this book that I'm always talking on about.
Yeah.
Can also provide some telehealth consults as well. So it doesn't have to be from somebody in your town. You can get a little bit creative and think, right, who else can give me some advice here? People like lovely Kate from Sleep Effect, who does consults as well, so she can do telehealth consults. There's a lot of other child health and lactation consultant services that are doing this remotely now because they realised they needed to. There was lots that were doing it pre-COVID for women in rural and remote areas, and now there's obviously realised there's a need to be able to be more flexible with that service. So my advice around that would be don't be bound by somebody in your state. You might find someone amazing in Perth who can telehealth in with you weekly. You can figure out a way to accurately weigh your baby at home, and there's a lot that can be done by telehealth if needed.
That's excellent. Thank you, Sarah. That is fantastic. So that's brilliant. You've explained what the 6 week is. We've clarified that it's not just about 6 weeks. It can be from 5 days to ongoing care. We've talked about the care team, GP, obstetrician. The 6 week appointment doesn't have to be just with an obstetrician, and the value of seeing your other care providers around that time. So we've talked about the what, the how, the why, the time, what happens in the appointments. Is there anything else you'd like to add about the 6 week appointment that pregnant women or new mums should know?
I would just say that if you're worried, let us know. If you've got any questions, there's no such thing as a silly question, and we'd far rather just check something out. Most women find that after having a baby, most of the modesty goes out the window. So if you've got symptoms, so sometimes women are worried about pelvic floor symptoms, whether they're worried about a prolapse or some bladder issues or incontinence. 30% of women who've had a baby will have some issues like that. So if we know about it, then we can help. And I'd really encourage people just to, and if they don't feel comfortable physically, actually talking about something, it's just to write down a list of issues that then their GP can start to work through and have a chat to. For partners of new parents, I'd also say that if they've got any specific concerns, especially from a mental health point of view, is to come along to that appointment, even if it's just for briefly, and just explain some of their concerns. So often we might find parents, that a partner will come along and say, it's just not their usual self, or they've been acting very anxious at home, which is unusual, and that can be very useful information for us. And for the parents themselves not to be embarrassed if they're not feeling like themselves. If they sing out and let us know, then we can help and point them in the direction of some really good resources. You've probably heard of Panda. So it's an excellent website. So postnatal depression and anxiety, they've got an excellent website, panda.org, which has got excellent resources for new parents and for partners as well, and how to support people if they're not feeling like themselves. So it can be a pretty tumultuous time, and really just checking to make sure people are getting through it.
And I just wanted to go back about the partner. Even if you've got a partner who can come with you, it's great that they they can come, and even if it's for half the appointment, and to say those things, that this is what I'm noticing, is this normal, or I'm anxious about this, because there's a level of anxiety and postnatal change that partners feel as well. And Sarah, I know that we spoke earlier that you check in with the mums about their domestic safety, and that often they feel that if a partner comes to an appointment, they can't say that. And I know that at our first maternal health appointment, at all of our maternal health appointments, we were asked that. And I know that Jonathan found it really confronting. He was like, you know, oh my God, is there something? What is it? Why would she ask me that?
What do I do? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so he was really confronted and upset by that. But it's good to know that that's just a routine question, that that the maternal health or the GP or the obstetrician has a duty of care to ask those questions and to check on that sort of safety. So partners should be prepared to answer some questions when they go to a 6-week appointment as well.
I certainly usually involve them a bit if they're there, and say how they, you know, coping with the new changes, anything that they're worried about for their partner or baby. But the other point I'd make then is that sometimes women have a traumatic birth for a variety of reasons, whether it's not matching up with expectations, there's been some severe complications. And I think it's also important to remember that sometimes that the partner has also been very traumatised by witnessing either the events leading up to the birth or after the birth. So there's been a few times where that's been a good opportunity for us just to check in briefly to say, are you okay? That's, you know, that's very challenging for people, especially if they feel very powerless in that situation. They're used to being maybe a fixer or a helper, and then suddenly they're in the corner of the room, really can't do anything, and we don't need them to do anything, we just need to stay out of the way. But that can be a very, very challenging time for partners, especially if mums might have a blurry recollection of the whole situation, especially if they were very unwell. But partners will often have a vivid recollection of that. So that's the other thing to check in on partners or the other person who was there at the birth to make sure that they're okay.
That's a really good point. Thank you, Sarah. Again, you are just full of these gems. I feel so grateful that we found each other, and not only do we get to text and talk about other things offline, but you get to share this experience as a mum, as a rural GP, as an obstetrician. Your advice is invaluable. And for those following who don't know, Sarah and her sister Liz have an extraordinary app called Family HQ, and it's a medicine tracker which is invaluable. So make sure I'll tag this all. So what I'm going to do after this is I will do a post with the key points so that you can easily reference them, and share this again as a main post on our Instagram and share it across our platforms. Might even try and put it on YouTube as well. It's such a ripper. But the other thing that the next chat that Sarah and I are going to do, we've already touched on this one. We're going to do a chat in 2 weeks about conception, and not about contraception per se, but about conceiving after you've already had one child, because I think you can fall pregnant when you're breastfeeding. Hi Fenton, love you. But also people can face challenges and unexpected challenges around conceiving second, third, fourth, fifth children. And so we're going to talk about that. So that's in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, looking forward to it, Sal.
Excellent. Thanks for today, Sarah.
No worries. Sorry we couldn't get it working at the start. I think I just saw a mouse run up into my lounge room. It's like, ugh.
Oh, you handled that beautifully.
Anyway.
Oh, well, oh my God. So mouse play, just before we go.
Well, the kids think it's hilarious in the mornings to jump up and run around and check all the mouse chats.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's not really a fake report. It's way more than I would like. It's a lot better than it sounds like it is down south in New South Wales.
Yeah, things are sounding pretty grim there.
Pretty awful. Anyway, I need to get a cat, but my husband hates cats.
Well, I noticed that Kate's just doing a bit of clap there. I don't know whether that's the clap for thanks to that Instagram Live, but maybe it might be a clap because Kate's also a country girl. I think she and I both lived through mouse plagues. So
gross. Anyway.
Gross. Anyway, on that note, we'll speak soon.
Okay, see you, bye.
Oh, I love you so much. Bye.
See you, Val.